Don't let these tears fool you. It's all dog around this mug. I'm good.
Hey, what's going on, Who Dat Nation? It is yours truly, TJ Jones. And yes, I am the host of the State of the Saints podcast. Thank you so much for checking out the State of the Saints podcast, where we talk New Orleans Saints. On this edition, we're going to be talking about wide receiver Michael Thomas and him landing on IR. We're also going to be talking about Marshawn Lattimore and how his injury could affect the secondary. But shouts out to everybody that's watching this right now, that's listening to this. I really do appreciate it. I'm in Tuskegee, Alabama, visiting my in-laws for the holiday season. But I did want to do a podcast talking about Michael Thomas because, look, we've seen this story before when it comes to Michael Thomas. This is like the third year. For about 3 seasons, Michael Thomas has been dealing with injuries, and it's been extremely unfortunate because Michael Thomas came into the league in 2016, took the league by storm, had a really good, solid rookie season alongside Brandon Cooks at the time. And then he played so well, he made Brandon Cooks expendable, which we know that the Saints end up trading Brandon Cooks to the New England Patriots because Michael Thomas was ready to emerge as that number one receiver. And for at least about 3 seasons, Michael Thomas was the is-all and be-all of the passing game for the New Orleans Saints. I mean, teams came into the Superdome or going up against the Saints knowing Michael Thomas was more than likely going to get the football, and they still couldn't do anything about it. I mean, the guy with his vice grip hands was catching everything. We know about the records that he set, having more catches than any other receiver in his first 4 seasons. And everybody was excited to know and see Michael Thomas's full potential, right? I mean, he was on a trajectory to have a Hall of Fame career. And then all of a sudden, week 1, with about 2 minutes left in the game back in 2020, Latavius Murray rolls over his ankle, and his career was never the same. I mean, he's been up and down throughout his career, dealing with that ankle injury, deltoid, knee. I mean, it's just been very, very unfortunate for Michael Thomas. And even though Michael Thomas wasn't the Michael Thomas of old this season, he still was pretty solid. You can count on him to have those 4 or 5 catches for about 50 or 60 yards. And he was the guy that would go on some of those tough missions as a wide receiver, going across the middle, absorbing some of those big hits, in order for the team to convert on third downs. But as I look at Michael Thomas's career, it's just one of those unfortunate events once again, and it's going to be one of those careers of what if. What if Michael Thomas would have never gotten hurt? What if Michael Thomas would have been, one of the best in the league like he was when he first came in and been consistent doing that? So I feel bad for Michael Thomas. I really do, man. And I feel bad for the New Orleans Saints as well. It seems like Derek Carr and Michael Thomas had a little bit of a rapport. I mean, you can look for more, of course, but if I'm looking at the wide receiver room, if I'm looking at Chris Olave, if I'm looking at Rashid Shaheed, and I'm looking at Michael Thomas, and I'm saying who has the better rapport out of the 3 with Derek Carr, it had to be Michael Thomas. And now Michael Thomas is on IR, means that he's going to be out for at least a month. So what do the Saints do? What do they do? Well, you try to go with some of the young talent that you have. You got Chris Olave, who had a really good game the last time we saw him play against the Minnesota Vikings. We seen Rashid Shaheed step up in clutch situations when Derek Carr needs a clutch play. He's looking for number 22. And also someone that Saints fans have been excited to see, A.T. Perry gets an opportunity. The rookie out of Wake Forest who set all type of records at Wake Forest. He had his first touchdown catch against the Minnesota Vikings. We know about that pass that Jameis Winston threw across the entire field, and A.T. Perry coming down with the football. Now, A.T. Perry has to take advantage of this opportunity. Now, he had other opportunities other than that touchdown catch that he had. Now, he had opportunity to make the game interesting, to convert some plays, and I expect for him to do that. I mean, if you followed A.T. Perry throughout his career at college, he was one of those guys, man, that he would drop a pass, at least one per game. But after he drops that pass, he just becomes an insane man when it comes to catching the passes. So I expect for him to take advantage of this opportunity. I think that he could be that possible number 2 or number 3 receiver for the New Orleans Saints going forward, because I really feel like this could possibly be the last season for Michael Thomas. I don't see the Saints investing in Michael Thomas, not the fact that he's not talented. And I do feel like Michael Thomas will go on to another team and play. But I just feel like with all of the things that happened, getting that big time contract at the time, he was the highest paid wide receiver in NFL history when he signed his contract. And then after that, he got injured and he's never been the same. And I expect for the Saints to probably move on from Michael Thomas and probably invest in some of these younger, talented wide receivers that they have. Now, these guys have to get on the same page with Derek Carr. Like this is the point of the season when teams are starting to establish themselves as what they're going to be. Are you going to be a pretender or are you going to be a contender? And the Saints are coming off their bye week. They have a big time matchup versus the Atlanta Falcons. Whoever wins that game will be in first place of the NFC South. So the Saints, they have to be playing their best football at this point. None of this stuff with Derek Carr. Oh, man, if you give him this, if you give him that. No, man. Look, it's been 12 weeks. 12 weeks into the season. It is time for Derek Carr to live up to that potential that the Saints saw when they decided to sign him. We seen guys like Matthew Stafford, not comparing Derek Carr to this individual, but Tom Brady. We seen some of these talented quarterbacks who switched teams and they had issues when it comes to the chemistry. We start to see later on in the season, teams started to get a little bit better. Like Matthew Stafford and the Rams started to get a little bit better. But when they first got started at the beginning of the season, it was up and down because he was still trying to understand his receivers and the offense. You got to be able to understand that at this point because every game matters now. I mean, every game could decide if you actually make the playoffs or not. So I expect for Derek Carr to go out there and become better. I expect for him to get on the same page. And I know some Saints fans will say, man, you're absolutely insane. It don't seem like it's going to happen. But they don't have much of a choice. They don't have much of a choice. It's put up or shut up time. And I know people don't trust Pete Carmichael consistency as a play caller, DA's consistency as a head coach. I really don't either. But everything is in front of the New Orleans Saints right now. Everything. You have so many different things that are bouncing your way when it comes to teams losing the battle of attrition, the lack of quarterback, franchise quarterbacks in the NFC, and it being so top heavy. You have an opportunity to separate yourself from the pack. And who's to say if you go into the playoffs, you can't win a playoff game or two? Now, I understand once again, people do not trust Dennis Allen as the head coach to get this team together. I get all that. I understand it. But based on the talent that the New Orleans Saints have, they should be able to put it all together at least to make sure that they win this division and get at least one home playoff game. But we know that in order for the Saints to win games, be consistent, be that force that they have been in the second half on defense, notice I ain't say first half because it's the tale of two halves when it comes to the Saints defense. But the Saints defense may be without Marshawn Lattimore for a while. In that game versus the Minnesota Vikings, there was a play where one of the players rolled over his ankle and he had to be carted off the field. And Marshawn Lattimore has been playing pretty solid this season. Now I know people haven't been, knowing what he's been doing. They've been focusing more on Paulson Adebo, but the reason why everyone is so focused on Paulson Adebo is because nobody throws Marshawn Lattimore's way. Marshawn Lattimore is locking down his side of the field. So in order for teams to feel like they got a chance to move the football, they gotta, throw the ball Paulson Adebo's way. The way the Saints play defensively has a lot to do with the way that Marshawn Lattimore plays the cornerback position, because the Saints can rely on Marshawn Lattimore to lock down the best receivers on the respective team more times than not, and it gives them opportunity to do different things defensively. Now, we know that the Saints have been struggling in the first half of games. Maybe the absence of Marshawn Lattimore might make the Saints kind of think outside the box a little bit more. We may see the Saints blitz a little bit more, which I don't understand why the New Orleans Saints don't blitz more. I don't understand why, because you have two cornerbacks that can actually, lock down their respective sides. And then not to mention Lante Taylor, he's pretty solid in the slot as well. So I never understood why the Saints don't blitz more. I understand they're more assignment based, guys stand in their area, but I just feel like maybe if you put pressure on a quarterback to get the ball out of his hands, at least make him think that you're going to blitz, maybe it will become effective. And the way that the Saints have been getting their hands on footballs, getting turnovers, it might be a plus. But you're going to have to find ways to become effective defensively with the absence of your best cornerback. But Marshawn Lattimore, we all know how special he is, man. But I expect for him maybe to miss a game, but I expect for him to be back. Especially if the Saints are going to be making a playoff run, they're going to need number 23 to be out there going up against the best of the best. I mean, if you're making it to the playoffs and there's a chance you can play the Dallas Cowboys, you need him to be able to try to neutralize CeeDee Lamb. I mean, you need all hands on deck if you're going to try to make the postseason. But it should be exciting. The Saints taking on the Atlanta Falcons. They're bitter rivals in Atlanta. The winner of that game will take first place in the NFC South. Look, I understand that it would be 5-6, meaning that you're below 500, but that's the NFC South, man. It's a terrible division, so the Saints benefit from it being a terrible division. But you got to be able to win this football game. The Atlanta Falcons don't know exactly what they're going to do at quarterback. I mean, you got Desmond Ridder out there, but he got benched, and the only reason he's playing is because Taylor Heineke is dealing with a hamstring injury. So the Saints are going to have to take advantage of this, and they're coming off a bye week, so they should be dialed in and focused to take on the next half of their schedule. But I would love to hear from you. What do you think about Michael Thomas's injury? What do you think about Marshawn Lattimore not being in the lineup? And what do you think the Saints' chances are of making the postseason and winning the division? Comment down below, like and share this video. This has been the State of the Saints podcast. Previous episodes are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Anchor FM. And you can also follow me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at TJAY Jones 8. Till next time, all I got to say is, who dat?